Hi, everyone. It's your host, Dr. Janice Castro on Latina ADHD. While I am a licensed psychologist, I do want to remind y'all that this podcast, is not a replacement for therapy. So, for today's episode, I would like to share with y'all a little bit about neurodiversity. What does that even mean? Have you ever heard it? If it's your first time hearing it, you've recently learned about it, you are not alone. Neurodiversity was coined, it was invented, it was created by sociologist Judy Singer. And if we break down the word, neuro is for neurological and diversity is for diversity, as in differences. So, neurological differences. And together we got neurodiversity. It talks about the fact that brain differences are natural. No one brain is going to be exactly the same as another. Just like there's other differences in our cells, in our bodies, we're all very different and unique, and we all have different strengths and challenges. So, neurodiversity includes a range of different medical conditions or mental health conditions under this umbrella. And if you think about it as an umbrella, you've got ADHD under that umbrella, you've got autism, dyspraxia, dyslexia, just to name a few. And every person's brain is going to work differently. And that's what makes us all very unique. Neurodivergent or not, no one will ever have the same brain as you. What we do see in common with people with ADHD who fall under this umbrella of neurodiversity is that they do have less dopamine and norepinephrine compared to neurotypical folks, meaning people who don't have ADHD or who are not neurodivergent. So when you think about neurodiversity, traditionally people have seen it as there's a problem, it needs to be fixed. That's what we love to do as humans. We love to fix problems. And when we start to understand and embrace neurodiversity as learning and thinking differently, then we start to understand that it is that more people are seen as just having a natural variation in terms of their brains, and that these differences in brains have unique strengths and challenges. So many people that have ADHD do seek out help because they're trying to navigate a world that was not built for them. And so, because they learn and think differently, they're trying to figure out how to be able to improve their life and be able to meet their goals in ways that are going to look different compared to neurotypical folks. The view of understanding and embracing neurodiversity encourages us to be able to focus on what are neurodivergent folks good at too. It's not all bad. And so we also want to not ignore the challenges. We want to be able to even out the playing field for everybody. So when we think about neurodiversity in everyday life, you're going to see that neurodivergent folks are going to think and learn differently in schools, in the workplace. It could be in relationships, whether that's friendships or romantic ones. And to truly be inclusive as a society, it's important that we all try to have a better understanding about what is neurodiversity, what do some of these accommodations that they are needing, and then be able to accept people for who they are with their differences. We all have different intersecting identities. We all come from different marginalized communities that can make it really challenging to be able to get the support that we need for our mental health. For example, people who are neurodivergent and are part of a marginalized community, such as the BIPOC community, are going to face extra barriers. One of the main reasons, because historically, there isn't a lot of trust in these medical institutions and systems, given how BIPOC folks have been treated, whether it's that they experienced racism or discrimination or have been experimented on. And so these also stereotypes that people have of certain BIPOC communities may play a role in how doctors approach their clients. This is not to say, like, I'm not trying to discourage y'all from getting help, but it's just important for us to be mindful. There's a reason why there's a mistrust in our community with medical professionals. And so the mistrust is there. And then on top of that, We think about the layer of how culturally within the BIPOC community, there's a stigma when it comes to mental health. So, growing up, thinking about therapy was not something that was encouraged, at least in my household. And now I am more open about it with my family, but not growing up. And medication, taking prescribed meds from a doctor, often the saying has been that that's para los locos, that's for crazy people. Like there's got to be something real wrong with you to be taking medication. And so we got this stigma around mental health services culturally. Then we got this layer of the mistrust with medical systems. So it's going to make it harder to be able to find support. And often folks are going to feel misunderstood because of these experiences. Now, the hope is that we will have years to come more BIPOC folks in these mental health or medical professional roles. We want more diversity within these roles so that more BIPOC folks can feel more comfortable. It's not to say that BIPOC folks all of a sudden have these cultural understandings. We ourselves, as people of color, are encouraged to be able to learn about other cultures. And the hope is that white people will also want to be open, encouraged to want to learn more about how to provide culturally appropriate services because historically, a lot of the assessments and treatment approaches have been created for and by white people. I am hopeful, though, we are making progress in providing more culturally appropriate services in these different health fields, and we are seeing more diversity as the years go by. Now, let's talk about how to be able to support and embrace neurodiversity. One way to support and embrace it is by listening to this podcast and learning more about ADHD. That is one way. You can learn about it through a lot of different resources. The more people understand neurodiversity, the less stigma there will be. The more we learn about it, the more open conversations we have. That helps break down the stereotypes. Also, aside from learning and talking about it, we want to be able to have empathy. Of course, you're going to hear a psychologist say have empathy because empathy allows us to be able to connect with folks even though we have different unique experiences. And it allows us to be able to value other people's perspectives. And it will then create stronger communication and relationships despite our differences. The other way to be able to embrace neurodiversity is standing up for neurodiversity. This could be supporting efforts to protect rights and opportunities of neurodivergent people, such as joining disability rights groups and being able to support policies either at your job or at your school that are inclusive of folks with disabilities. And you could also help create or join communities where neurodivergent people and their families can connect and support one another. So, just to recap, neurodiversity, remember, it's a way of embracing different ways of thinking and learning because everybody has unique strengths and challenges. And think about what's one way that you can make the world a little bit more inclusive. Is it perhaps that you share this episode with somebody? I invite you to keep learning and advocating for neurodiversity and support the initiatives that make these spaces more inclusive for everyone so that it feels like an even playing field. Thank you so much for listening and take care.